Hello, and welcome to the Scouting Data Collection and Organization course. My name is Evan. I will be guiding you through this course, and what's helpful is if you had this presentation open in another tab so that you can click on the links that are embedded in the presentation and go along with me as I explore them. So what is scouting? If you're new to robotics, this will definitely be a new term for you. What I would define it as is the process of analyzing other robots to benefit your strategy. So at competitions, what this entails is the scouting team sits in the bleachers, watching robots every match and recording what they do. There are 6 robots on the field, so ideally there would be 6 scouts, one for each robot. To give you an example, like in Power Up a few years ago, the scouts recorded the number of cubes each robot put on the switch and the scale. And if you'd like to see a gameplay video of Power Up, just click on that link. And if you're the scouting lead especially, it is your choice what type of data collection system you use and to organize your scouts. So this presentation will be talking about the data collection system, how to analyze your data, how to enter it, stuff like that. The strategy and the scouting teams are obviously closely related, as the scouting data refines your team's strategy not only match to match, but once you start making a pick list, you need to know which robots are the special ones and the ones that are maybe not so good. So, yeah. So let's look into some types of data collection, because how are you going to get your data without a data collection system? So some common types are paper and pencil into a computer, transferred to a computer. With a scanner, I've seen a team run the paper through a scanner, and it automatically puts it into the computer, kind of like a Scantron, I guess. Or you can manually type it in. A whiteboard to a computer, a tablet with an app to a spreadsheet, by word of mouth, which is probably not very reliable, but I guess it's possible, to a spreadsheet or to the scout lead, or just paper and pencil only. And this is useful for pit scouting, so paper and pencil isn't all bad, but there are many more ways to do this as well. Most of these types use at least one computer spreadsheet. As you can see, all of this says like computer or spreadsheet, and there's benefits to paper, and also cons to paper, as well as with spreadsheets and computers. With paper, it's super easy just to jot it down. You don't need Wi-Fi and you don't need like extra equipment. However, with a spreadsheet, you can do things like create averages, maybe analyze your data a lot more, especially with like Google Sheets or Excel. And also your data, if you're using a cloud-based system, is saved in the cloud. So that's always nice. As for our team, the Cloverbots, we've always used laminated paper, which is basically a whiteboard, and a computer. So the methods in this presentation will mainly be based off my viewpoint of that. So, yeah. So when you have your spreadsheet for your data, how would you organize it? Well, let's see. Make it what you like and what's comfortable. So if you don't make it what's comfortable or what you're familiar with, it's going to be really hard to navigate this spreadsheet when you're looking at your data or if you're entering your data, if you're doing that manually. An example of this would be like maybe lines separating the rows and columns just to give your eyes a break from sorting all the information out. And a logical layout is hugely important. You don't want your data just kind of spread out across the spreadsheet. You want it tight. You want it orderly. Yeah, you just want it easy to read and easy to see. Two common layouts. One is organized by team. So what that means is there's different subsheets basically. Like at the bottom of your screen, you'll see different sheets altogether. And those are different teams with the scoring areas and matches on each sheet on each sheet for each team. So you'll have matches on top, scoring areas on the side, and you just if the team plays that match, you go into that team, that spreadsheet, then you enter their scores for each of the scoring criteria under each match, if that makes sense. But we'll see some examples. Or you could organize it by statistics. So let's say, like in deep space, if you're putting, if you're if one of your criteria is middle hatches, then that would be a separate sheet. You'd have all your teams going down the left side of the spreadsheet, and then you'd have your match numbers going across the top of your spreadsheet with how many they scored in the middle hatch position, and so on and so forth. Maybe like a cargo is another sheet laid out the same way. And both can be combined with the stats organization at the end of the teams, kind of. So you have all your team spreadsheets, and then you have stats organization. That's really helpful. I mean, you can decide, yeah. And that link right there is an example sheet. So go ahead and open that up. Just take a look at it. And also another thing to do is include different portions for different scoring positions, a penalties section, and a notes section. Penalties and notes are super important to remember, as well as some maybe subjective values that are based on the scout's discretion, which you'll see in that sheet. And make the data points on what your team would like to know. Don't do too many and don't do too little. So if you have too many, a lot of that is probably unnecessary, because maybe what you're looking for is more of a cycle time approach. So if you want speedy robots, then include a cycle time, but maybe don't include as much numerical or penalty items. I mean, of course, maybe some things have to be numerical, but you get what I mean. Okay, so here's a little snapshot of each type of organization. So on the left, we have team-based organization with the criteria running down the left and the matches on top. The matches will always be on top for each type of organization. And on the bottom, you notice it says separate sheets with teams. So you'll have, team 1, team 2 on the bottom in separate sheets, all laid out like this. And then with the criteria-based organization, you have the matches on top, teams on the left. Of course, these are the teams. Remember that these are only the teams at your competition. So you'll make a whole separate shebang for each different competition. And as you can see on the bottom, separate sheets with criteria, low cargo, mid cargo, high cargo, low hatch, middle hatch, high hatch. And you can also see that in the spreadsheet link that I included in the last slide. So you have your spreadsheet set up, and you're at the competition. And so how do you enter the data? And this will definitely vary for the different methods of scouting you use, basically, like a paper and pencil, using an app, maybe that all the scouts have on a tablet. But for this, again, my viewpoint is from a laminated piece of paper to the computer, just someone enters it in. And so with that, the entry needs to be fast because the matches go by quickly. Whiteboards are handed in to the scout lead, who enters the data into the spreadsheet with how we do it. But an app could automatically upload and compile the data into a sheet. And for paper, obviously, new data is added to the paper file. What's great for entering data into the spreadsheet, at least if you're using the whiteboard to computer method, is AutoHotkey. It's a program where you can set keys on your keyboard to be different, like keystrokes. Maybe M is Control Shift or something like that. And if you use that in hand with the numpad on the right, it's great. It's super fast. It's really just a breeze, especially if you're really good at it. And just small notations and or numbers in the boxes is all you need, which is why the numpad is good to use because, maybe you don't need the minus button up in the corner. So you set it to N for no, for a box. Uh, and as always, like practice before competitions using the numpad. And like I said, you'll be really fast if you really know how to use it. So let's explore how to sort the data that you have. Data entered in rows and columns can be compiled into averages and percentages. So with Google Sheets or Excel, you can have commands and formulas in different boxes that reference other boxes, compile it together, make an average, make a percentage, do all sorts of stuff. The sky's the limit, basically. And they not only calculate it for you, but they can make your data look neat, maybe by like truncating a decimal on an average. Um, Commands can even convert words to numbers for calculation, such as like Y or N for yes and no. Maybe it's like, did they leave the HAB platform? Deep space example. Did they leave the HAB platform in Sandstorm? Yes or no? 1 to 0. That can become an average or a percentage. Like this team left the HAB platform only 25% of the time. Maybe they're not a good team. Anyway, that's just an example, not a real life example. Um, and it's harder to do averages on paper and percentages and calculations like that, but it is possible. Yeah, again, that's why I like the spreadsheet method better. So let's transition from scouting at matches to pit scouting before matches. So before matches start, you'll want to pit scout, meaning you travel to every other team's pit and ask them questions about their robot. This is extremely critical to your success at competitions. It gives you a view of the robot and the team's main intentions and the robot's components. This is definitely better done on paper. And if you'd like to see our pit scouting sheet, which I recommend you do, click on that Google Doc link. And this was that pit scouting sheet was created for Destination Deep Space of 2019. And you can watch the gameplay video at the other link. Um, Pit scouting also gives you an idea of the robot's capabilities even before you've had a chance to collect match data. So if your match is the first match, pit scouting is essential to begin your strategy and communication with other teams. So, for example, pit scouting can get you information like what does the team plan to do during the first 15 seconds? This year it was what do they plan to do during Sandstorm? Do you plan to put a hatch on the front of the cargo ship? Or a cargo in the cargo ship? Or a cargo in the rocket? Or something like that? So once you know that, you can know what you can do to maybe if they're doing a cargo, you can do a hatch. Gets you more points. Stuff like that. Also, you'll notice on our Google Doc that there's a specialties and section, and we find that extremely helpful. So what that is what is the team confident in? What can their robot do really well as they've been practicing? Like what really stands out to them? And that just gives you an idea of it basically defines the robot, what it's good at. And that is extremely helpful. All right, so that concludes the bulk of this presentation. Some final tips and just comments is this presentation was open-ended, and find the style that fits your team's data needs. Your team's scouting preference could be totally different than what was in this video, uh, and that's all right. I mean, that's the whole point of FIRST Robotics is finding new ways to do stuff that are better and just fit your needs. Encourage your scouting team during competitions. Scouting is tedious a lot of the time, and it takes a lot of inner willpower to stay out there in the bleachers. And also gather consistent data at competitions. You don't want to only catch a team's good moments if they maybe like disconnected from the driver's station, you know, during a match. You really want to know that and not accidentally have skipped that match. Um, Most importantly, good luck out there on the field, everyone. Hopefully, this course was helpful. This is the first course I've made and the first scouting course I've made. So, if there are any like suggestions, if I went too fast, maybe there's something I didn't include, just go to our team's website, 3674cloverbots.com, and put in your suggestion under the contact thing, under the contact tab, and I'll make some changes. Um, Also, I'm sorry, my microphone isn't the best. I'm not the best speaker in the world, but thanks for bearing with me, and I hope you learned something. See ya.